Welcome to Around the Weird. Here's your host, the museum curator of the strange and unusual, Mr. Nothing.
Thank you, mysterious voice, and welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I've found in my travels. Today, it is Poetry Thursday, so I wanted to talk about some poetry of interest. And today's poem is all about sisters and the man that they want to marry. Quite an unusual poem in its sort of structure and everything, even if the description initially doesn't sound so strange. But the poem is Song for a Sea Tower by Helen Adams. For those who don't know, Helen Adams was a Scottish poet who lived in the 1900s. She wrote quite a bit of poetry, and she was associated with the Beat generation, although some historians choose to associate her with the generation that came before the Beat poets. But I think it's a bit difficult to place her in either of those. And I think based on what I've read about, the women that she's written about, the sort of Scottish folklore that's present in her poetry, I think it'd be better to associate her with what the Scottish poets were doing at the time, because that seems a bit more accurate. But I guess that just goes to show the difficulty with using genres of poetry, because not everyone necessarily fits in a neat bubble, and certainly not everyone identifies with the genre that they were lumped into. But it seems like Helen Adams is pretty well regarded as a poet, especially in Scotland. This was my first time encountering her poetry, and it was a bit difficult to read at times based on the style that she's using, but she also uses native sort of Scottish ways of writing English in her poetry, which can make it difficult to say out loud. But I enjoyed reading it nonetheless. So without further ado, let's talk about Song for a Sea Tower. I will read it, do a little bit of analysis, and we will move on from there. There lived 4 sisters in a tower by the sea, between the blue waters and the lily lee. One sister was a wolf, one a gentle sheep, one a swan, and one a fish from the fabled deep. 4 sisters loved a man, beautiful was he. He swam in blue waters beside the lily lee. The sheep gave him fleecy wool to warm his lonely bed. The swan gave him feathers to crown his curly head. The fish gave him gaudy rings from the wrecks of vanity. The wolf ran all alone around the lily lee. The wolf ran all alone where lilies proudly rise. She gave the man nothing but a glance from her eyes. A glance from her savage eyes beside the summer sea. He left the wave and followed her along the lily lee. 3 enchanted sisters in a tower by the tide. Where their hearts awakened, there they must abide. 3 spellbound sisters, a sheep, a fish, a swan. Floods beat against their tower, time goes on and on. If we wait with patience, no matter what the pain, from the green waters the god will come again. 3 ancient sisters, faithfully they wait for the young and loving man that the wolf ate. And so that was Song for a Sea Tower. In terms of analysis, there's a fair bit to talk about with this poem. What's first noticeable in this poem is the structure of the poem. It's told in couplets, so you have these rhyming double lines, where it's like, there lived 4 sisters in a tower by the sea, between the blue waters and the lily lee, and then later, the fish gave him gaudy rings from wrecks of vanity, the wolf ran all alone around the lily lee, and if we wait with patience no matter what the pain, from the green waters the god will come again, or again. That one doesn't particularly rhyme, but if you say it in a specific way, it does. And maybe that line in particular is meant to stand out like that, so that you'll consider it more, as we've seen in a number of poems that I've talked about in this channel. But the structure of the poem is very interesting in that it rhymes like that, sort of a folk tale maybe for children, but the structure or the subject of the poem doesn't necessarily speak to me as like being for children. But I think it flows, and it presents an interesting kind of fable, if you will, a song for a sea tower. So kind of a fable of what happened here. And so the structure is very interesting of the poem, and then the narrative of the poem, I think is kind of easy to see, although I believe that the narrator might be speaking in allegories or something similar, using nature rather than talking directly about people. Just noting that there were 4 sisters who lived in a tower, and a beautiful man came by, and these 4 sisters were attracted to them, and they each gave them something. But the one of the sisters, a wolf, didn't really give him anything, and chose to remain alone, and that might have drawn his attention. And they entered into a relationship, and it seems like the wolf ate the man, which you could interpret as being literal, like literally destroyed this man, or metaphorical, in that they got married and had an unsuccessful marriage, and that kind of mentally ruined the man, and he was never the same before. And the 3 sisters who remained lamented what happened to the man, that they wanted to be with him, and the wolf sister kind of wrecked him. You could interpret it as a metaphor, but you could also interpret it literally, like somehow the 4 sisters were waiting to be freed by the man, but only one sister got to be freed, the wolf, and she forgot about her sisters, which is not a very happy outcome. This poem is pretty sad in what it's saying, whether you take it like literally or metaphorically. Either way, somebody is getting hurt in this poem. It's the sisters, it's the man, and the wolf is doing the damage in the poem. It reminds me of other fables like Little Red Riding Hood. I'll get it right eventually, or Peter and the Wolf, where they encounter these fearsome creatures. And in these, like, the fearsome creature is their fellow sister, and it manages to eat the man, you could argue. And there is no happy outcome in this story, because again, the ancient sisters are waiting for the young and loving man that the wolf ate, but it doesn't seem like he'll be coming back like the grandmother in Little Red Riding Hood, or Peter, like, managing to defeat the wolf, and Peter and the wolf. So very interesting poem in how it tells that. And there are other poems that she's written that sort of dive deep into Scottish culture. And that might be happening here. I don't know too much about Scottish folk tales, but for those of you who are out there, maybe you might know better than me. Let me know in the comments below if she's leaning on that here. Anyway, so those are my thoughts on Song for a Sea Tower. A pretty interesting poem, and that I love how it sort of utilizes Scottish culture, like Scottish rhyming schemes. It certainly doesn't feel like it's part of the Beat Generation, which other people have said before. But I could be wrong. It could be doing something interesting in a way that I'm not quite seeing. And I would always love to hear from you. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'll put a link to it in the description, so let me know what you're thinking. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more people can find out about this poet or this poem if they don't already know about it. And also join the Discord if you want to have further conversations about poetry, books, movies, TV, other sorts of media like that. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and wolf-eating man travels. Hopefully not. Farewell.